Even as we grieve, we give thanks for this most faithful life. I am deeply aware of this great inheritance and of the duties and heavy responsibilities.
I think it's safe to say that change is on my agenda, change for good. And I embrace that and I enjoy that change. I don't fear it.
For weeks, tension built up behind palace walls, hidden under polished smiles and perfectly staged appearances. Everything looked calm on the surface, but something serious was brewing out of sight, and people close to the situation could feel it getting worse by the day. Then suddenly, everything flipped. A scandal tied to Queen Camilla didn't just shake public trust, it pushed things to a breaking point. It forced a move nobody saw coming. King Charles III, still wearing the crown, stepped back while Prince William quietly stepped in and took control. No formal announcement, no grand speech, just a silent shift in power that had insiders whispering like crazy. Alliances started changing fast, and the monarchy itself looked like it was bending under pressure. But here's the real twist. Was this move meant to protect the crown, or did it open the door to something way more risky? That's the question people can't stop asking. At the peak of the chaos, Prince William walked straight into his father's residence, and something instantly felt off. No announcement, no protocol, no waiting around. He moved like someone carrying urgent business that couldn't wait another second. Staff clocked it right away. It wasn't just a surprise visit, it was the look on his face. Cold, focused, locked in. He didn't greet anyone, and that alone told everyone this was serious. For weeks, he had been watching things spiral. Right at the center was a scandal that refused to die down. It was tied to a disgraced former royal associate, someone whose name had already left a mark on the monarchy. But the real issue, reports claimed Queen Camilla had kept a private connection with this person, and that detail took everything to another level. Even after the controversy went public, things didn't calm down, they got worse. Messages, quiet support, and even alleged invitations started painting a messy picture that critics jumped on fast. To the public, it looked like the palace hadn't learned anything at all, and that only added more pressure. When William finally stood face to face with Queen Camilla, her reaction said everything. She clearly didn't expect this kind of confrontation. Not like this, not so direct. But from her side, she didn't even view it as a scandal the way everyone else did. The connection being questioned had been around long before the headlines turned ugly. It was built on years of trust, way before she became queen, way before the weight of the crown changed everything around her. In her eyes, this wasn't about defending something wrong, it was about not turning her back on someone just because the public had switched up. To her, loyalty meant standing solid when things got uncomfortable. She couldn't ignore her own past either. There was a time when public opinion was completely against her, when every move she made got torn apart and criticized hard. Back then, it was the people who stayed, not the ones who disappeared, that helped her get through it. Those memories stuck with her and shaped how she moved now. So in her mind, why should she suddenly become someone who walks away the second things get messy? But Prince William wasn't seeing it through emotion. He wasn't caught up in personal history or loyalty. He came in focused, direct, and ready to lay everything out clearly. No confusion, no soft edges. The problem wasn't just some old friendship, it was the fact that the contact never stopped, even while the scandal was active and blowing up. In a world where every move can be exposed in seconds, that kind of link isn't harmless at all. It sends a message, loud and clear. And that message, whether meant or not, can look like support for behavior the public had already shut down hard. Trust in the monarchy was already shaky, and this situation pushed it even closer to the edge. For William, this wasn't a small issue, it was a serious risk they couldn't afford to ignore. What started as a conversation about one relationship quickly turned into something way deeper. It became a full clash of beliefs. Camilla saw the monarchy as something human, made up of real people who still deserve private lives, loyalty, and personal connections no matter what. But William wasn't seeing it like that at all. To him, the monarchy is a symbol first, and symbols don't run on feelings or personal ties. They survive on public trust, and right now, that trust was slipping fast. The tone shifted quickly, words got sharper, tension got heavier, and neither side was really hearing the other anymore. Each of them believed they were doing the right thing, protecting the monarchy, but in completely different ways that were never going to line up. Then there was King Charles III.
I am deeply aware of this great inheritance and of the duties and heavy responsibilities.
He wasn't there when it all started, but the moment he got informed, the weight of it hit instantly. This wasn't just a disagreement. This was a serious divide between his wife and his heir, two of the most important people in his world, now standing on opposite sides of a crisis that was demanding action right now. But what move could he even make? Standing with Camilla risked making him look like he didn't care about the scandal at all. Standing with William risked weakening his own authority and possibly damaging his marriage. And doing nothing, that wasn't even on the table anymore. The tension had already started leaking beyond private rooms. Staff were whispering, picking sides quietly, and watching everything unfold in real time. The palace, usually calm and tightly controlled, was starting to crack from the inside, and people could feel it. 3 days later, Prince William came back, but this time it wasn't for another argument. This time he came with a clear line drawn. Cut all ties with anyone connected to the scandal, or he would take things beyond the palace walls. This wasn't just a request, it was a direct challenge, bold and unheard of in that environment. An heir stepping up like that and forcing the issue into the open, that changed everything instantly. Because now, this wasn't just about a controversial connection anymore. It had turned into something way bigger, a quiet but intense struggle over control, over judgment, and over what the monarchy is supposed to stand for. All of this playing out while the world watched closer than ever, catching every move, every shift, every signal. So how did William manage to shake Charles in a moment this sensitive? And what hidden pressure was really driving this power shift behind the scenes? Let's break down how control didn't flip overnight, but instead was slowly, almost quietly, reshaped step by step. Because for generations, the system guiding royal power followed a strict and careful pattern, and what's happening now is starting to push against everything that came before. The system was always clear. The monarch held the power, no questions asked, no confusion. It was structured, controlled, and rarely challenged. The future king or queen could watch, learn, and prepare, but there was always an invisible line they were not supposed to cross. That balance kept everything in place, even during chaos. It protected the crown and made sure order didn't fall apart when pressure hit. But this time, that balance didn't hold. William made a move no modern heir had dared to make. He didn't stay quiet, didn't wait his turn in the background. He stepped forward and pushed for influence over decisions that by tradition belonged only to his father. That alone was enough to shake people. It wasn't just surprising, it was deeply unsettling. Experts on royal tradition weren't shocked by what he wanted, they were shocked by how he went about getting it. His approach broke an unspoken rule that had guided the monarchy for decades. And the timing? That was no accident. Behind palace doors, timing is everything. And Charles wasn't as strong as he appeared in public. His schedule had become unpredictable, often disrupted by ongoing health struggles that wouldn't fully go away. Public appearances still showed confidence, still showed control, but those closest to him could see the pressure building. The strain was real. Illness and constant pressure had quietly chipped away at his ability to handle long, drawn-out conflict. William saw all of it, and he understood something critical. This wasn't the moment to sit back and wait. This was the moment to act. By stepping in when his father's energy was at its lowest, he created a situation where pushing back would be difficult, and that shift changed everything. Even exhausting, this was a calculated risk, and it showed just how far he was willing to go. Inside the palace, reactions split fast. Some believed William was doing exactly what the situation demanded. The monarchy was already under pressure, surrounded by controversy and growing public doubt. If strong action was delayed any longer, the damage could turn permanent. From that angle, William wasn't crossing the line. He was trying to steady the institution before it slipped deeper into crisis. But not everyone saw it that way. Others viewed it as dangerous. To them, this wasn't just a bold move, it was a boundary being pushed aside. If an heir could step past tradition once, what would stop it from happening again? The monarchy has always depended on clearly defined roles. Once those lines start to blur, it risks confusion, or worse, instability that could spread beyond a single decision. The tension didn't explode outward. It built quietly, but with weight. William's position was firm. His demand left no room for negotiation. He wanted complete unity within the family, especially when it came to distancing from anyone linked to scandal. There could be no mixed signals, no quiet loyalties that might later surface and cause more damage. Every move had to align. Every message had to be consistent. Then came the most difficult part. Camilla's connection placed her directly at the center of it all. Her position didn't ease the situation. It made it more complicated. If she couldn't step back in the way William expected, then everything he was trying to put in place risked falling apart before it even had a chance to hold. Meanwhile, the pressure on Charles kept building. Public trust in the monarchy was slipping, and conversations that once felt off limits, like the idea of stepping aside, were now being discussed more openly. The weight he carried was no longer just personal, it had become institutional. Every decision now came with consequences that could shape the future of the crown. At the center of it all stood a father and son, locked in a quiet but powerful struggle. William approached it with logic and long-term thinking. He laid out scenario after scenario, showing how even small compromises could grow into much bigger problems. His argument was direct and difficult to dismiss. Half measures wouldn't fix anything. Charles listened, and that may have been the hardest part, because beneath everything, he understood there was truth in what William was saying. The monarchy was exposed. The risks weren't hypothetical, they were real. But agreeing to William's demands meant more than resolving a single crisis. It meant shifting the balance of power itself. And that shift didn't happen all at once. It moved slowly, almost quietly, without any formal announcement. Decisions that once rested solely with the king began passing through William. Advisors started adjusting. Processes began to change. No public statement confirmed it, but the reality became harder to ignore with each passing day. Authority no longer sat where it always had. It had shifted, not officially, not in a way the public could easily point to, but in a way that those inside the palace could clearly see. As that shift settled into place, one question stayed in the background, growing heavier with time. What happens when protecting the crown means giving up the very power that defines it? The situation had reached the point where delay was no longer an option. For weeks, Charles had tried to hold off on making a decision that weighed on both his marriage and the stability of the monarchy. He hoped time might offer a solution that could satisfy both his wife and his son. But that hope didn't last. The pressure kept building. The scandal refused to fade. Public reaction grew stronger, and William showed no sign of stepping back. What once felt flexible had now become fixed. The space for compromise was gone. Queen Camilla sensed the shift before Charles ever said it directly. In private, she noticed small but telling changes. His tone softened. His certainty began to slip. The firm defense he once gave started to fade. Those small changes led to a harder truth. He was no longer fully standing with her. He was preparing to put the monarchy first, even if it came at a personal cost. The turning point came during a short private meeting. Charles framed his decision as something shaped by circumstances, something he had little control over, but both of them understood what it really meant. As king, the choice was never entirely his to escape. He still had the authority to reject William's demands, but that alone wasn't enough anymore. His health was declining, the pressure was intense, and William wasn't backing down. Together, it made resistance feel out of reach. Camilla understood the logic, but it didn't make it easier. The man who once stood firmly beside her was now stepping away. When she asked if he had considered refusing, his hesitation said everything. He had tried to avoid choosing, but William held more leverage. His influence came from protecting the monarchy's reputation, while Camilla's remained personal. Inside the palace, authority shifted quietly. Charles stepped back, William stepped forward, and Camilla found herself increasingly left out as decisions moved on without her. Once authority shifts, it rarely finds its way back. William's influence kept growing as his strategy started showing results in managing the crisis. What first looked temporary slowly turned into something more permanent. Camilla's role began to shrink as courtiers moved around her instead of through her. She watched decisions unfold from the outside, no longer part of the process. It became clear her position had changed. She was still queen in title, but the sense of partnership was gone, replaced by distance. Her influence hadn't disappeared overnight. It had been quietly pulled away piece by piece. Charles, once the center of authority, started to look more symbolic. He still showed up to meetings, but many outcomes were already shaped before he arrived. William was now directing strategy and setting the course. In practice, the monarchy's operations were being led elsewhere. The king's role shifted toward confirming decisions rather than shaping them. Looking back, Charles's choice no longer seemed like a real choice at all. Every option in front of him carried serious consequences. Standing with Camilla risked further damage to the monarchy. Standing with the monarchy meant stepping away from her. He chose the crown, preserving the institution, but allowing authority to pass to his son. Camilla could only watch as that shift became reality. The man who once stood firm for her now moved in a direction she couldn't change. And within that silence, the palace itself began to transform. The crown no longer guaranteed control, and the question remained whether her influence was truly gone or simply changing form. Charles reached a point where delay was no longer possible. For weeks, he held back, hoping time would ease the pressure and protect both his marriage and the monarchy. But that hope faded. The scandal didn't disappear. Public outrage grew, and William didn't step back. What once felt flexible became fixed. Camilla saw the shift early. His confidence weakened, and hesitation replaced certainty. The man who once stood firm was no longer doing so. The truth became clear. He was leaning toward the crown. In a private meeting, Charles presented his decision as forced, but both understood he still had the power to choose differently. Having the power and using it were no longer the same. Charles faced pressure from every direction. His health was declining, scrutiny was intense, and William remained firm. Resistance no longer felt realistic. Camilla understood the reasoning, but the emotional impact was different. Being set aside cut deeper than expected. She asked if he had truly considered refusing. Charles struggled to answer. He had tried to satisfy both sides, but knew William held more leverage. What followed wasn't formal, it was gradual. Charles stepped back from key meetings. William stepped in, first participating, then leading. Advisors adjusted quickly. Authority shifted quietly, and Camilla found herself increasingly excluded as decisions moved forward without her. Charles believed the changes were temporary, but inside the palace, a different reality was already taking shape. Once power shifts, it rarely returns. As William's role expanded, his leadership started to show results. His strategies held, his position strengthened, and his influence settled into something more solid. Control was no longer shared in the same way. Charles became more symbolic over time. He still attended meetings, still held the title, but often arrived after key decisions had already been shaped. His role shifted from directing outcomes to confirming them. The structure remained the same on the surface, but underneath it had changed. Camilla watched this transformation closely. Her influence continued to fade as courtiers who once turned to her began moving around her instead. She remained queen in title, but the authority and partnership that once defined her role had quietly slipped away. The marriage that once represented unity now existed inside a system where her involvement had been reduced. Charles chose to protect the institution, but that decision came with a cost. In preserving the crown, he gave up the authority that once defined his position. The monarchy remained intact, but the balance within it had shifted. What happens when the crown continues to function without its king truly shaping it? When power moves quietly, without announcement, and settles into different hands? This may be the point where everything begins to turn. The shift became visible in small details. William's presence at Buckingham Palace started earlier each day, often before most staff had even arrived. In those quiet hours, he reviewed reports, approved decisions, and handled matters that traditionally would have gone directly to his father. These were not ordinary circumstances. The monarchy was under pressure from health concerns and rising public scrutiny, and the system needed someone who could act quickly without waiting for ceremony or formal process. William stepped into that space quietly, operating behind the scenes as the shift continued to build. Palace staff adjusted without hesitation, not because official rules had changed, but because the situation demanded it. They recognized where decisions were now coming from. Authority didn't move all at once, but it shifted steadily from the king to the heir, becoming harder to ignore with each passing day. The change showed up in small but telling ways. Documents that once required the king's direct approval began carrying William's signature instead. Decisions tied to official events, diplomatic matters, and state functions no longer paused for Charles. They were processed and finalized through William's office. What used to be framed as a request gradually turned into instruction. The tone changed, and so did the response around it. Those outside the palace began to notice as well. Foreign leaders and government officials adapted quickly, directing their attention toward William as the active figure in royal affairs. In practice, he became the primary point of contact, while Charles remained in the background. Even during formal discussions, William often led the conversation, with Charles stepping in only when tradition required his presence. Longtime advisors saw their roles shift. Some were sidelined, others replaced by people aligned with William's direction. The change was steady. The old guard remained, but their influence faded as new systems took hold. Public appearances made it clear. William moved to the center at events once led by Charles. Speeches and engagements shifted toward him, while the king's role became more symbolic. Even in images, William stood forward while Charles stayed behind. Control extended beyond appearances. Budgets, staffing, and operations flowed through William. Charles was often informed rather than involved. William also handled sensitive matters, including responses to controversy. His approach was direct and consistent, and his speed and focus made him the acting center of leadership within the monarchy. The palace adjusted to the new structure. Staff looked to William's team for direction, and his firm, direct style stood in contrast to Charles's slower pace. Efficiency began to take priority over tradition. Catherine's growing presence reinforced the shift. She appeared more often at major events, and the public responded strongly to her and William as the monarchy's next phase. International duties followed the same pattern, with the younger pair taking on a more visible role, while Charles and Camilla stepped back. Charles, facing health pressure, chose not to resist. Stepping back allowed the system to function without open conflict. Over time, the change became almost seamless. William led in practice, while Charles remained king in title. Power moved quietly, shaped by circumstance, raising a deeper question about whether this kind of shift has happened before in royal history. Long before any formal transfer, history shows clear examples of power shifting early. During King George III's later years, his declining health left him unable to govern effectively. His son stepped in as Prince Regent, handling decisions and state matters while the king remained in title. It wasn't a removal, it was a response to necessity, setting a lasting precedent. A similar pattern appeared near the end of Queen Victoria's reign. As she withdrew from public life, her heir, Edward, took on more responsibility behind the scenes. He became a steady link between the old system and what came next. In more recent times, a quieter version of this shift appeared during Queen Elizabeth II's later years. Charles gradually took on more duties, representing the monarchy and managing key responsibilities as her role reduced. Power doesn't always shift in obvious ways. Often it moves gradually, shaped by age, pressure, and circumstance. These examples show that monarchy isn't as fixed as it seems. While authority may sit with the monarch on paper, real influence can change when illness, public pressure, or internal strain creates space for the heir to step forward. In the current situation, another factor adds complexity: public perception. Today, influence depends not just on title, but on trust. And historically, heirs gained power early when they were seen as necessary to stabilize the crown. They stepped in not to challenge the crown, but to protect it. But the line between necessity and overreach has always been thin. When an heir begins to act with authority before their time, it raises a serious question. Are they preserving the monarchy or quietly reshaping it into something new? Looking at the current situation, it doesn't stand alone. It follows a pattern seen across history, where the crown remains in one place while real power slowly moves elsewhere. The difference now is visibility. Every move is watched, analyzed, and questioned in real time. So, what do you think about the king allowing power to shift toward William? Is this a necessary step to protect the monarchy, or does it signal something deeper changing within it? If you found this breakdown interesting, make sure to like, subscribe, and share. And drop your thoughts in the comments, because this is one story that's far from settled.